I'm Sean, I'm not Zach. I'm Sean Woodhouse from Itty Bitty Apps. Come up all the way from Melbourne to join you and meet our fellow CocoaHeads Sydney members. So welcome to a very special Beyond WWDC event tonight. You're actually sitting in the Mantle Group offices. Itty Bitty Apps, the company I work for, is part of Mantle Group. There's actually a bunch of merch over there by the table. I know everybody sort of came in through that way and got pizza. Probably didn't get that far. Alex is kindly displaying the merch that we have on offer. It's all free. Grab a notebook, grab a gym towel thing. The gym towels have little zips in them, so you can put your keys in them, which is actually quite useful if you go to the gym, not like me. There's a couple of drink bottles and some other things as well. So help yourself. If you need to go to the bathroom, the men's bathroom is over that way to your left, and the women's is over to the right. I think that's about it. If there's a fire or emergency, just make your way to the emergency exit signs back through the main entrance area where the lift come up. I think that was about it. That's it. I'll hand it over to Zach. Have a great night. I'm sure there'll be people heading off afterwards for a drink or something, but Zach will probably fill us in. Cheers.
Keep it going for Sean, everyone. Without him, we wouldn't be here tonight. And I think you can all agree the space is fantastic. Get another round of applause. All right, so let's get stuck in. Welcome to CocoaHeads for June 2023. It's obviously a big one. It's the month of WWDC. And to begin, I would like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of this land, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. So I'm going to start with just a little bit of housekeeping. I'll try not to bore you too much. But hey, I'm Zach, and along with Christian, we run CocoaHeads. So give us a yell, any questions, comments tonight. I'd be happy to talk to you. A massive thank you to our sponsors. Without our sponsors, we couldn't run events like these, wouldn't be possible to be here tonight. So as always, thank you to Billu for helping with our ongoing costs, and a huge thank you to Mantle for the space tonight, as well as the catering. So round of applause again, please. A reminder that we have a code of conduct. You can read it in full on the website, but the code of conduct applies to everything CocoaHeads related, including the Slack groups that happen online. If there are any issues or concerns related to the code of conduct or to report any violations, please speak to myself or Christian, or feel free to get in touch digitally and anonymously if you prefer. So CocoaHeads has a Slack community. Everyone is welcome to join. The link's up on the screen. It was also the title slide for tonight if you're watching this later. But feel free to join there, and it's a good place to hang out and ask questions throughout the month. So, do we have anyone attending for the first time tonight? Just hands up. Massive welcome, round of applause. It's a good number of fresh faces tonight. It's great to see everyone. Welcome, and we really hope you enjoy, and we hope you come back in future months. If you like what you see here tonight, I'd highly recommend checking out the Melbourne CocoaHeads group. They run on the second Thursday of every month. We run on the third. They also typically have excellent live streams. So if you'd like to follow along from home, it's well and truly very easy to do that. So looking ahead, what's happening for CocoaHeads, we'll be back at Billu in July, back to normal location, normal schedule, the third Thursday again. And of course, we're always looking for talks. If you have any ideas, maybe you've played with something cool coming out of WWDC and you'd like to give a talk on it, even just a nice short talk, that would be most welcome. And just let myself or Christian know. We can make that happen. Alrighty, so what's happening tonight? Well, you've just heard me do the housekeeping. We've got a short intro, but the main sort of crux of tonight is a panel discussion focused on all things WWDC 2023. I'm sure everyone can agree it was a pretty good one. So we've got a panel with Matt, Quentin, Numa, Craig, and Sam to discuss sort of thoughts, reactions, opinions, and then talk a little bit about their experiences. Some of these people were over in California for WWDC, and some I'm sure have plenty of exciting things to share with us. So I'm very much looking forward to that discussion in a few minutes. But as always, is anyone looking for work or looking to hire and would like to give a 20-second pitch for that now? Christian has a microphone. If you're looking for work, if you're hiring, now's a good chance. All right, everyone's up. Yep.
Yeah, so, uh,
Up. Yeah.
yep, my name is Hassan. I'm one of the chapter leads for IO Estimate Optus. We are hiring, so you can reach out to me if you want to look for a new job or you know anyone that's looking for a job.
Thank you. Christian, someone back.
I'm Ataz. I worked as iOS developer for a few years back in Europe. Then I moved here to work in MongoDB. But now I don't work as iOS developer, but still have the passion to return to work as an iOS developer again. So yeah, like I will be looking in a few months after I complete 1 year in Mongo. So yeah, like just keep in mind if you have something up in the next month.
Go Europe. Do we actually have anyone else from Europe? I'm getting my steps in.
Hello, everyone. My name is Otávio. I'm from Brazil. My English still is not very good, sorry. And I go to Australia for my dreams and development, iOS development. In Brazil, I development iOS in banking, Santander Banking, XP Invented, and Itaú Banking for new features and development for new user experience for peoples on Brazil. Thank you for opportunity. It you. Thank you. Thanks. Sorry, my English. Sorry.
Cool, thanks. Hopefully there are some discussions a bit later on. Awesome. All right, I'm going to very quickly hand over to TC to introduce the event.
Oh, thank you, Zach, and thank you all for coming tonight. I've attended a few CocoaHeads here in Sydney. This must be the biggest group I've seen, so thank you. So I hope you've all enjoyed WWDC 23. It was a pretty special one, but tonight's going to be equally special for those inside of this room. Not sure if you noticed, but in the keynote, as you can probably work out, Australia has played a pretty big role in this year's WWDC. And tonight, I'd like to especially thank a few folks that have flown in from Melbourne, actually, just to share some of their experiences, their first-hand experiences with all of us here on a panel that you get to meet a bit later, which hopefully will help kick off your experience and being able to take advantage of some of our announcements at WWDC 23. Now, please let me also remind you that tonight's content is intended for Apple Developer Program members, and discussion about pre-release software is defined as Apple Confidential per your membership. If you're unsure, please speak with me. Now, to kick things off, how many of you know who Serenity Caldwell is? Okay. How many of you kind of miss her daily wrap-up from WWDC? Oliver, thank you. We do too, and we were having a think about how to bring a piece of WWDC back, especially for you folks here tonight. And it's next, so shall we roll the tape?
Yeah, let's see that.
Hello, CocoaHeads Sydney. I hope you're all excited for a great evening. Shout out to Zach and Christian for today's fantastic program, including a panel discussion, thoughts, and reactions on our WWDC announcements from members of the community. I wish I could be there in person to chat about all the great things we released last week, but hey, that's what video recaps are for, right? So here's a quick rundown. 175 WWDC videos are now available, covering topics like Swift data, widgets coming to more places, and the new watchOS 10 design. And we've got 46 videos about designing and developing for visionOS and Apple Vision Pro. It's going to be an amazing next few months. Let's kick it off here tonight in Sydney. Have a great program and hope to chat with you soon.
Right. Cool. I think that was a pretty cool way to kick off this event. So, look, super quickly, I'm gonna do a WWDC in review. It's more like a summary, but I called it an in review because I wanted to sneak this joke in there. All right. What did Apple announce? Well, there was a 15-inch MacBook Air. It's got the sort of same M2 chip that have come to a few Apple computers so far. And I guess for people who sort of like the thinness and lightness of an Air, but also want a 15-inch screen size, and maybe who don't need a Pro chip in their computers. There are also a couple of new sort of Pro end Macs introduced. So the Mac Studio and the Mac Pro. With this, I think it's noteworthy because the Apple Silicon transition is now technically complete with every device or every Mac device having an Apple Silicon chip, which is one of the things that was promised. I think it was late 2019, whenever the transition was announced. We also got iOS 17, a bunch of sort of cool new customization features. One of my favorites is the voicemail transcription. I think most of the voicemails that I get these days are sort of spam or unintentional. So it'd be good to use that. And there are, a bunch of new features for messages as well, such as the ability to create stickers. Also on the iPhone, there's a pretty cool new standby mode for having like glanceable information when your phone is sort of horizontal and I think on a MagSafe charger. And it piggybacks off the widget system. So this seems pretty cool as well, especially if you've been building widgets for the iPhone already. It looks like it'd be pretty easy to integrate this. There's a new journaling app, again, sort of using some smarts to, I guess, find things to surface to you and encourage you to write about. And I think this one deserves a finally, that Apple Maps finally has offline maps support. So that's pretty cool. There are lock screen widgets on iPadOS. They're not new. They've been in iOS for a while now. Also on the iPad, there's a new health app, which again, I think is pretty cool. It syncs with the data collected by your phone on the devices. And I guess it'd be nice to be able to view that on a bigger screen. PDF editing has supposedly gotten a lot better, as well as with extra features like annotating and stuff. I've personally never found it as good on using the sort of built-in system stuff as third-party apps, but hopefully that will this will change that. And to go back to widgets, they're now interactive, so on iOS and iPadOS. So that's going to be pretty cool to interact with things and control content or mark reminders off and things like that. And the cool part about that is it's also coming to the Mac. And interestingly, the app doesn't need to have a Mac app to be able to show its widgets on the Mac. Just having the app on your iPhone is enough. And it uses some cool magic behind the scenes to put those onto the screen of your Mac. There's also a whole bunch of new video calling features. So things like reactions that feed into the video stream in real time and then sort of outputted through your video conferencing app of choice. I think that's also pretty cool. And some new sort of presenter features for positioning yourself over a display. Interestingly, the next version of tvOS, you'll be able to start a FaceTime call and use your iPhone as the camera and sort of use the big screen as your, I guess, FaceTime device. Kind of hint, maybe there's going to be a new product that sits at the bottom of your TV. I don't know. It seems like a logical step. And watchOS got a new design language. I think this is quite interesting, sort of pushing content to the edges and focusing on having action buttons on the edges as well. And along with that, it has a smart stack of widgets. I don't think these are interactive, but they do sort of piggyback on some of the existing widgets, which is pretty cool. And then, of course, there was this bad boy. The Vision Pro. It was talk of the town last week. It's what Apple calls its first spatial computing device, running visionOS. Sort of plenty of familiar but interesting APIs for building apps for it. A lot of SwiftUI focus has gone into it for the development side. But it also does run sort of existing iPhone and iPad apps, which is pretty cool. Now, I'm not going to steal the thunder of the panel because I expect we're going to be talking a lot about this over the next little bit. This is what it looks like. But on that note, I'll wrap up this summary and we'll get stuck into our panel discussion for Beyond WWDC. So could you please put your hands together for our panelists tonight? And we'll back it up.
Trophy.
Starting off, Craig.
I think we should, go left or right.
All right. So, firstly, thank you to the people you see up here today for volunteering, for being willing to help out at this event. I think it's pretty cool that we've got such a wealth of experience here as well, and I'm sure this is going to be very interesting. So, we'll start off just with your name, sort of what you do, and how you experienced WWDC this year, or what your involvement was with the event, if any. So, Numa.
Hello, my name is Numa. I'm the co-founder and CPO of JigSpace. JigSpace is a platform for creating 3D presentations. My involvement with WWDC this year was that we were in the keynote. So I barely paid attention to anything at the start. I stressed for the rest of the section about the Vision Pro, and then celebrated. And that's that's it. Yeah.
Hello, my name's Quentin, and I make an app called Streaks, which also was lucky enough to be in the keynote. Thank you. So yeah, that appeared for interactive widgets on iPhone and iPad, and the new Apple Watch design language. I was lucky enough to go over to Cupertino to watch in person, so that was kind of cool, seeing it on the big screen. Yeah, so that's...
Wow, following those two. I'm Craig. I'm from Cochlear. Zach and Sam work with me. I was lucky enough to get to DubDub as well, but did not appear in the keynote. So just as well we started with those guys first, eh?
Keeps going downwards. I'm Sam. I work at Cochlear. I'm a former iOS developer, but I currently manage a team of backend devs. I've been doing backend dev for a couple of years myself. I did not get to the keynote, but I did watch it that Tuesday evening. And my wife was just so bored the whole time. So, so shout out to her for letting me do that.
I'm Matt Hall. I'm the co-founder of Hipster, creator of Crossy Road. We have been on stage, but not this year, unfortunately. Thank you for drawing attention to our failures.
Hang on to that.
Not at all the intention, Matt. So I guess, what was everyone's favorite announcement at WWDC, if you're not allowed to talk about spatial computing for a second?
For us, there's sort of a renewed focus this year on Mac gaming, which has sort of been very quiet for the last few years. So it was interesting to see like a chain of announcements with regard to the game mode with the extra low latency controllers, and the rather surprising announcement of, hey, there's Rosetta, but it's for DirectX 12, and now you can play all these PC games on your Mac unofficially. Like that, there was a lot of talk about that afterwards. Particularly, like someone spotted someone playing Diablo 4 on a MacBook on the plane on the way home, which should be impossible. Thanks, Blizzard. Yeah, that was definitely the highlight outside of spatial, of course.
Cool. Yeah. As a consumer, the ability to share ear tags between two different people. We've got one in our car, on the dog. We have to just arbitrarily assign them to one person right now, and then the other person gets an alert for being stalked. So I'm glad they fixed that. But for me, I think the most nerdiest one is the Swagger generator. So there's now a package that takes a Swagger file and generates some iOS client code for you. So as a backend developer, and I spent hours perfecting my Swagger and being very honest about what the API does, you can generate your code in seconds. Oh, both. The Swagger is mainly documentation. So that was really cool.
I'm going to be an absolute nerd. Swift 5.9 for me. Macros, whole bunch of other stuff. Followed shortly by Swift Data. Anyone that has spent as long as I have in core data will feel the pain and the relief.
Yeah, I think I'm stuck on core data for a few years yet, but for me it was the just incremental updates on both developer tools and user-facing tools. So I actually messaged Zach today and said, have you noticed this new update in Xcode? You can now update your package versions straight. Like, you don't have to go to I don't know, there's a bit of a process to update a package version. Now it's all in line, and just little things like that. There's a lot of just little tweaks that are just making things a little bit easier. So I was a big fan of that kind of stuff.
I think my favorite part was the live voicemail thing where people can call you. You can filter your calls, so I can get all that spam out of the way. Yeah, that's it. That was my favorite bit.
All right, so focusing on a sort of development perspective, what's one thing you can't wait to integrate into your Apple project? I think we might have had some of the answers already, but just very quickly go down the line.
Vision Pro. That's it.
I was actually playing today with the something that came out. So I think it's iOS 16.1, the dynamic island and all of that stuff. But in 16.2, there was a feature that I didn't know about, which was you can actually activate your dynamic island from intents, which you couldn't do in 16.1. So that completely went past me up until last week when I was actually speaking to some intents people. So even though that's not a 17 feature, like, that's really cool. You can actually start that stuff from the background, which you couldn't do initially.
Apart from Vision Pro, I'd like to actually get some macros to replace a whole bunch of tooling we have going in Swift. I don't know. We seem to always go through this cycle of building out more and more tools, and then finally the platform evolves and we can get rid of a lot of those tools.
I think interactive widgets would be the coolest thing. No promises about what we're doing at Cochlear, but we have a need for quick actions to interact with a hardware device that could be a good fit.
Yeah, the key stuff is Vision Pro, but specifically like seeing how the spatial operating system and the types of views you had on the games will work. So we immediately had all these discussions, and Crossy Road Castle is going to be a great fit for a window, and Crossy Road itself will be a fantastic fit for volume. And then hopefully we can continue those discussions on how we'll integrate those, maybe bringing some new apps into the interactive space and the fully immersive environments.
Yeah, cool. All right, so we've had a few mentions of Vision Pro. What do you think of it? Let's get into it. What do you think?
It was it was so great to see it after all these years. It's like been wondering ever since I saw that they'd purchased like that eye tracking company. I went, this is the year. They'll definitely announce it at this WWDC. And then it kept sort of going and going and going. And so it was good to see what they had, particularly with regard to the operating system. So obviously, I've made a game off to the side which was called Shooty Skies Overdrive for the Oculus Quest. We wrote that a few years ago, but obviously we started to work on that with the hope that Apple's device would be coming along soon. But the views and the things they've done, and the notion of being able, like Meta, you can only play one thing at a time. Just that immediate notion, I've got one game over here and a window over here and something else over here, is a real game changer. And I'm really interested to play with that and see how our apps integrate into that space.
So that game will be coming to Vision Pro, you think? You're excited to build it?
Well, Crossy Road and Crossy Road Castle immediately. Yeah, whatever else we can bring across. There's a fair bit of planning to go into a game, but everyone threw up about 100 ideas at once. We got to just cherry pick a little bit. We can't make 100 games, unfortunately.
This year. Yeah, I'm just excited about the hardware platform. I think the M2 chip and the R1 chip in there is going to be amazing. I think the combination of the bloody excellent hardware with a seemingly rock solid operating system, plus the metal stuff and the iOS frameworks, is like the perfect storm for something really quite innovative to come out. I think we haven't really seen a killer app for VR yet. I think if it's going to happen, it's going to happen in the next 6 months on visionOS. And if it doesn't happen on visionOS, it's just not going to happen at all. But I'm sure a lot of VCs would like it to happen in VR and recoup their investment from 10 years ago. But yeah, I'm just excited for the next 6 months. I think it's really way too early to say this is going to be a failure or a success. I think Apple's been very deliberate in putting out the hardware now and the SDKs now and then just being like, next year you can buy it, rather than you can buy it tomorrow and developers quickly catch up. They've given developers a lot of time to think about what to do, how to do it, and the barriers for developers are lower, the hardware is better. That's something we haven't really seen in the VR space yet, so I'm excited for that.
Yep. I'm a self-confessed VR tragic. Unfortunately, I've had most of the headsets and might still have a lot of them. And the thing that strikes me on seeing the system up close is you need to be $1 trillion company to build this. I don't think anyone else exists in the world that could have actually put together this level of hardware engineering and software engineering and sensor processing, and to make that transition so smooth when you become immersed in that environment is a hard trick. The latest headset I have is the PS5 VR2, and I'm not susceptible to motion sickness, but that still takes me 30 seconds to a minute to adjust to. And yeah, we're not seeing that right now. So
I think one of the demos that I sort of appreciated the most was the mindfulness demo, and I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about that, but it's in a few of the session videos. So I don't know if everyone knows the mindfulness app on your watch, but it shows a little flower and it sort of pulsates or blooms or whatever it does. But the version of that is when you go into full immersion, it sort of surrounds you and blacks out everything and puts you in a state. So like I'm not doing fancy chicken games and what have you, but no, but something like meditation is sort of, sorry, Matt. Something like meditation sort of applies to sort of where my head's at, say with Streaks, is it probably applies most in like the shared space kind of feel with it. But then I guess my mind's sort of ticking over where can I sort of bring that immersion for something more like mindfulness or something along those lines, or, you know, that kind of thing.
For us, I think we use ARKit a lot at JigSpace, and we've been using it a lot from the very start. I think from 2017. And as good as the AR experience is, you're still looking through a little phone window, and most of the time you're holding the device with two hands. And like the most exciting thing for us is probably that you get a full field of view, and you get to just walk around, and your hands are free, and you can collaborate with people and not be like isolated, and people don't have to just walk around you and look through your phone screen to see the AR experience. So yeah, that's a game changer for us.
Cool. So Numa, correct me if I'm wrong, but you've had a bit of experience building for this platform, and I think most of us in this room are developers, and notably missing from the SDKs last week is anything visionOS related. So you're in a bit of a unique position to, as much as you can, I guess, what's it like to build for this platform?
It's very similar to building a normal iOS app. You get all the frameworks that you normally use, so like you get all the Swift stuff. The Swift UI is pretty much exactly the same with some extensions to handle 3D models, but it's made really easy. Like a 3D container is just another view that you can add to your normal view, so you can build the exact same things you want. You can have like a scroll view, the text and images, and a 3D model, more buttons, anything. It just handles it just easily. Yeah, you get all the nice things in Xcode. It's really familiar. There's nothing too crazy. You have to use a reality kit to do any of the 3D parts, so you can use the reality composer to build up scenes if you want, or you can just go straight to like import your models in code and just do everything in a reality kit. Yeah, and then it's the same as any other device. You plug it in, you press play, you build an Xcode, you put the headset on your head, and then you are amazed at how crazy it looks.
So is it as good as everyone's saying it is?
Yes, yeah, exactly. The stuff that they showed in the keynote is there's no lies or CGI. It's exactly like that. It just works perfectly. It tracks perfectly. The hand control is insane. The eye tracking is perfect. The performance is crazy. The visuals, everything is like really, it's perfect. Like the lighting from the room is used. You get the reflections, everything. Like the experience looks super real. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's really super sharp and crisp. Like anything, like you can read text like super easily. The pass through is you can see just like normally. It's like similar to just looking through your iPhone camera like on your screen. So it's not like real life, but it's really close. And yeah, like working in it, even like reading code like through the pass through is okay. Yeah, like browsing the web, like it's great.
One of the like watching the keynote in person with, I don't know how many people were there, let's say 1,500 or whatever it was. There are a lot of Apple employees there too, so maybe 2,000. It was kind of like an aha moment when I think they put the headset on and did build and run in Xcode, and you see the your Mac screen projected onto the thing, and then seeing your app running it in real time, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's so cool." So yeah, that personally, that's something I'm kind of looking forward to. I don't know if you got to try that, but yeah.
Yeah, no, like having multiple apps open at the same time, and like your normal like Mac screen, and then an app. Like for us, it means we can build presentations using the Mac app, like the Mac version of JigSpace, using the mouse and the keyboard, and you can have like the 3D version of it just like floating on your desk at any size you want, just like live previewing your work. Like I don't know, I think like any 3D artist or like any 3D content creator, it's just like an extra like live monitor that you have in your desk. It's it's pretty crazy.
So to keep with the sort of theme of development experience for a second, Matt, you mentioned you'd done some work building an app for the Oculus. Do you have any thoughts on sort of how the development experience will compare to that? I mean, I don't know much about building for the Oculus, but what's that like?
Oh, actually, I wanted to, before I start, does anyone here use Unity? Does anyone use Unity directly? So just a couple, I mean, a few, so 3 there. Most people are doing native. So straight after I watched WWDC and watched the platform State of the Union, I dived into the Unity stuff. So they have specific, like for the volume one, they have a specific new camera you can put into the space. You make it the size, and then it automatically, fills it out, and it's like a hard clip on the edge. It looked to be very similar to just coding in Unity. I don't think there's going to be particularly high demand to get to that. Like it automatically supports Reality Kit because Unity have been working with Apple for the last 2 years. So yeah, as soon as it's available, we'll jump in, and I'm keen to know more. But from WWDC, what they showed, it looked trivial. Yeah.
Has anyone else played with any of the other VR development environments, Craig, maybe? No, okay.
The games.
No worries. Cool. So I don't know if I'm allowed to ask this, but I'll try it. If you've tried it out, I guess Numa, you've tried it out. Has anyone else tried it out? Any thoughts on how it is? If not, that's okay. I don't know what you all did over there. Looks like a no. Okay, no worries. Moving on. So other than your own app, what do you kind of see as good use cases for this, or is there anything that you'd consider to be a killer app if someone built it?
Who would like the microphone?
Come on, Sam.
I have a PSVR. I've had one for 5-6 years now, and I get it out every 6 months, piss around with the HDMI cables, play it for 20 minutes, and put it away again. Undo the HDMI cable stuff because it's annoying. The thing is, I don't know what the killer app is, and I think people are obsessed about the killer app. And I had a really interesting conversation just before this. Actually, I can't meet yet. We were talking about killer apps, and I think some people think a killer app will be the thing that makes people wear this all day long, because it'll work all day long if you're plugged in. Stupid statement. And I don't think that's really the killer app, because then I'd ask you, what's your killer app on your iPhone? Like, you don't sit on your iPhone all day. But I think the killer app we should think about as the thing that makes you put it on every day. What are you going to do in visionOS that you can't do, or you don't want to do on any other device you've got? That is interesting. I think people like FaceTime on the iPhone because it's way better than sitting at your desk, and you can just call mum on the couch or whatever. What's the equivalent for that in visionOS? That I don't know. I think it could be the mindfulness stuff. I think it could be a return of movies that are filmed with a 3-dimensional camera. so you can get incredibly immersive stuff. And I don't mean just like we've put some models around the outside where Disney. I mean like I am in Star Wars universe and I can turn and look around what's happening. That'll be wild. Yeah, that's two. I'll keep passing.
I mean, I don't view a killer app as something you have to use every day. Like it's probably for me, it's something more that drives you to the system. And, you know, for better or worse, Oculus has had a killer app in Beat Saber. Like that is the app that everyone gets. They've promoted it every day. Oculus acquired them. But yeah, you don't play Beat Saber every day, or else your arms are probably going to drop off. Like I once played Fruit Ninja Connect for 10 minutes and then never picked it up again. I had sore arms for a week. I think you're sort of on something with the movies. Like with Daring Fireball, probably the thing that raised my eyebrows the most is he said he would buy a Vision Pro even if it was just doing the sporting event experience that he had. I think sports and viewing and being there courtside is going to be, it might even solve Disney's ESPN problem. I think that's going to be something that people will use it for every day.
You stole my answer. I was going to say that. No, I think the accounts of sitting courtside at the basketball, I think, yeah, if there's a way to sort of produce that on a mass scale where I think specialized equipment's needed, but you can see that this is the start of that, and these are the first steps to getting to that point. But I thought it was kind of interesting how the obviously Apple's got the deal with the soccer, whether they use that sort of to like that would be the starting point for that, because even I have very little interest in soccer, let alone American soccer, but I probably would if they would broadcasting it on that. So
I think probably the killer app would be visionOS and macOS. Like the whole existing Apple ecosystem is what would just make people use it, and everyone's gonna have their different use case and their different habits. Like when you have to do something, you don't always pick up just your phone or just your Mac like every day. Some things you like to do on your phone, and sometimes it's the same task different days. You want to do it once on your phone, once on your Mac. It'll be the same thing. Like you'll have some people would really enjoy like browsing the web in the headset, and they'll just do that every day. Some people will use it for work. Some people would just watch movies. But it's just that you can continue doing the things that you are already doing, but like in a different way. And for some apps, it's going to be a lot better, and people are just going to be driven to do it like whatever way they think is best. I think movies, like I can't wait to watch movies in this. It sounds really good just to be immersed in the space. But yeah, for work as well, like really amazing.
One thing I was wondering is, did SharePlay come because of COVID, or did it come because of the future of Vision Pro? Because obviously that, I don't know how many people know SharePlay, but it's basically like a lightweight packet exchange where you can synchronize. There's a lot of built-in functionality to synchronize like movie watching or audio, but if you're a developer and you've got your own experience, you can synchronize your two apps really easily. That seemed to come out very quickly when COVID happened, so it makes me wonder if it's been in the pipeline for a while. But just watching a movie and having another person, whether they're sitting, maybe they're watching on a physical TV in the same room and you've got a headset on, or they're in another room or another house or wherever, I think that's going to enable a lot of like really interesting experiences, whether it's sitting next to them watching sport or watching a movie or whatever. But yeah, that SharePlay stuff works really well.
Yeah, I've got a bit as a testament to what a special person I am. I took my 3D Blu-rays and I ripped them and then converted them into side-by-side footage so I could watch it on the Oculus Quest in really low resolution with things. Even then, it's like such it's such an interesting experience, even though with the resolution of the Quest and the Go, it's substandard. But I never really understood why Oculus Meta didn't push ahead and actually start selling 3D movies. And I'm thinking, obviously Apple with Apple TV and all the licensing stuff, I've got all this huge library of content that I've never actually been able to watch 3D at home. I would immediately dive in and start playing that because it's a lot easier than ripping all my 3D Blu-rays, which was a real pain. I'm going to divert away from media and entertainment. So I spent Monday and Tuesday at Apple. Got, like everyone else there, got my mind blown. And then I spent the next 3 days at the largest cochlear implant conference in North America. And I spoke to an amazing array of surgeons who have been using our surgical app. That's what I do at Cochlear. I head up the surgical application team, which is delivered on iPad. And when the surgeons found out that I'd been at Apple, the first thing they said is, are you going to have a version where I can look at a 3D cross-section of the cochlea? So most people aren't aware of what a cochlea is. It's the inner part of your ear. It's a bony structure. You can't see into it. And what they do prior to surgery is they take a high-resolution 3D MRI, effectively. And the tooling they want, when they found out I'd been at Apple, was like, will it be able to do this? They want to be able to see one of the things our app does, which Zach has worked on, Ranveer's working on as well, and Ben, my God, half the team's here, is that it allows us to, without having to crack open this bony structure, be able to tell the surgeon how far they've inserted the electrode array, how far around the spiral they've gone in degrees. And if we combine that information with these massive MRIs they have, and with a Vision Pro, they're all going, I want to be able to see this. I want to see where the array is positioned inside that spiral. And I was happy to say to all of those people, that was my immediate thought when I saw it. I want to do this. I want to have that ability to take something profoundly different into surgery for our surgeons, because a 1 millimeter shove too hard and you can damage a person's potential hearing. Okay. And so these guys are trained for years, and the array is 19.5 millimeters long, and they take up to 3 minutes to insert it. And it's at a steady and constant pace. I don't know what it does to their hands. I know what typing does to my hands after 40 years, but these guys need every tool they can to preserve the hearing that people have. So that's something I see as being very doable with the hardware we've seen so far. And I want to play games and watch movies like everyone else, but yeah, that's a non-entertainment use. I think we'll see.
Yeah, just furthering from that, like I got to try. It was something that we haven't talked about yet. Is Google's solution to this? This came out in 2013, 2014. The Google Lens. Google Glass, thank you. Yeah. It was a tiny little square bit of glass that sat here, and you looked through the glass and there was an image projected, and that kind of faded into obscurity, but it found a bit of a second life in the manufacturing industry. Able to have manuals or exploded views, similar to what Craig was talking about. But I wonder if this will be even better for people quickly getting up to speed with manufacturing engines or any sort of production line situation where they need to learn how to put together end parts, and a 3D model could show them, and they could track their hands and verify stuff with real-time, images of what's it meant to be and what's it currently at, which would be a huge productivity boost for onboarding people into those industries. So that would be really cool, because I think that's where you'll find most Google Glasses now, are in the factories. Hopefully those factories are humane and all that stuff, but yeah, that would be really nifty and wouldn't require a surgical field.
Yeah, actually following on that, the other group of people I talked to at the conference were our cochlear field staff from North America. In our surgical app, we have a full demo mode, which actually runs through each of the diagnostics, the workflow, the cloud connections, all that sort of stuff. You can simulate doing an insertion. You can perform what's called NRT, which is neural response threshold measurements, which are vital for mapping. Every person's biochemistry is unique, as you can imagine. So the amount of stimulus that each person needs electrically on the auditory nerve for each array is going to be different for each person. And so we have this full-blown demo mode, and it literally is running. It's not a movie or a slide deck, or as you see in some apps, it's actually running through the app and running live data through it. And the first thing our field reps started asking is, can we have that on the Vision Pro, but like so we can see like a surgeon doing an insertion in the background in a rendered sort of view and all this additional stuff of what the implant looks like. These implants are tiny, but they're tens of thousands of dollars, right? So a lot of field reps don't get to hands-on play with them and have a look at them. The first time they see them is when they, attend a surgery, and if they don't, lose their lunch because of all the surgery stuff going on, they get so hyped up in it they don't actually pay attention to the implant. So there was a whole bunch of people going, hey, can we make demo mode 3D and work on Vision Pro? There's definitely a lot of use cases for that.
I think that's great to get a feel for wide range of potential use cases, and I think it's pretty limitless. Now, I want to hand it over to anyone in the audience who'd like to ask a question for any or all of our panelists. Would anyone like to get us started? Yeah. Well, sorry, I have to run the mic down.
Question for Numa, and I don't know whether you can answer it. First one is, what was the maximum time that you or your team spent in Vision Pro? Does this work? All day, probably. Yeah, like 9 to 5, like with some interruptions and some food, but we wouldn't like take it off because it was uncomfortable. So yeah, it's good to work with.
Question for the panel. Since this one is releasing next year, what are your thoughts on like the release model? Will it be like annual, biannually, or what other?
I'll start with Matt.
How often will they release an update to the Vision Pro? I have no idea. Like, yeah, I can't speculate on that. If I did, TC might smack me.
I think we should note it's called the Vision Pro, not the Vision. So there could be a Vision Lite, there could be a Vision SE, Vision S, Vision Ultra Max, Pro Max, Studio in a bigger box. Could be anything. So yeah, I suspect we'll see the Pro, and then we'll see the Pro, and then I think we'll see a cheaper version or a cut down version or something that's cheaper. And then I don't know. I'm also asking myself the same question about the chips, right? If there's going to be an M3 next year, what kind of investment is a laptop right now? Because it's a $2,000 or $3,000 investment for a Mac Pro. If the chip gets updated next year, I feel shortchanged. So if they put the M3 in it and then the M4 in it and then whatever, yeah, I don't know. Buy the first one. They'll help fund the second one when it comes out, and you can have it great like the rest of us. But yeah.
Yeah, Sam stole my line. It's called the Vision Pro. So where's the Vision? That's funny. Where's the Vision? But if you think about HomePods, right? Everyone in this room probably got the original HomePod, and we all now probably have 3 or 4 HomePod minis floating around the house. I expect the same sort of evolution, but yeah, they had to start somewhere, and if you're going to start somewhere, you may as well start with something that's going to kick it out of the park. And getting hands-on with this thing tells you that they have spent. I would hate to see the budget, put it that way. I think it would fund small countries.
I think Apple Watch is a good case to look at with it all. First Apple Watch came out, and I have that one. That's the blue band. That's the special developer version. But I think at that time they were promoting things like viewing your partner's heartbeat and stuff like that. And as it played out, yeah. I don't know if anyone remembers that, but that didn't really pan out as a feature that people wanted to use or to any degree. But I guess as people use the device, the use cases became more apparent, and I wonder if that will sort of dictate the cadence of releases and I guess how it evolves and what features are added. Maybe it will turn out that maybe it needs to be a more expensive device, or I don't know, probably not, but that kind of thing. Like once because I do Apple TV development as well, and initially we weren't quite sure which way it was going to go, and like streaming movies and stuff, that was an obvious one, and I've done stuff on workouts apps, and we weren't quite sure what other categories were going to sort of play out. But at the end of the day, streaming TV and movies, that's been the sort of the #1 use case. And I think once we settle into the handful of categories where it really shines, I think that will sort of determine how future versions play out.
I got nothing to add.
The Vision Pro is very nice, very expensive. Maybe, I don't know if we know the Australian prices yet, but probably more than a 15-inch Mac Pro base model. Do you have any concern around investing development time into it now, considering that it may not be in the hands of many people, especially consumers who may be, who might be the target audience for some of your apps?
I would say the opposite. Like, you should probably start getting on it as soon as you can. Like, I don't think the price is going to be an issue for a lot of people. It's, I don't know. Well, the way I see it, if it's truly a computer, then it's cheaper than a MacBook Pro, and it goes on my face, so it's pretty good. But yeah, like it takes a bit to like make a great app, and like this, like it's an open field right now. It's like, think of it like the start of the App Store for the iPhone. Like, anything's possible. Like, if you create something good early, you can define the space, you can define this field. So I would start on it like as soon as I could. I did.
I mean, I think there's sort of maybe 3 categories of apps that sort of apply. There's apps that have an iOS, iPad experience, and those ones, I think you pretty much just check the button and run. So in terms of investing time, I think there's a very low barrier to get started for those apps. The other one would be existing apps that have a, like whether they're a game or like a 3D experience. Then you've already invested in a lot of the assets and stuff. So again, it's just sort of getting them up and running. And then the third one would be, and I think maybe this is where it applies, is brand new stuff and brand new 3D, experiences or whatever it is. And I think maybe that, like if you're someone that's doing that, you've probably got the expertise to get up and running pretty quickly. I'm not quite sure, but that sort of broadly how I look at it, there's sort of the 3 main categories, and I think 2 of them are sort of knocked off pretty easily, and the third one's maybe the riskier one. But Numa says, you've got a chance to sort of define the category then. So I think, yeah, maybe high risk but high reward. I don't know, because I think year over year there's going to be more and more users who buy it as prices, hopefully, Apple, I don't know, come down. Yeah.
Yeah, from thinking from a Cochlear point of view and a personal point of view from when I was a consultant, we should be there first. You don't personally have to buy one. The visionOS simulator and kit is going to get you a long way, definitely. But the reality is, I think it's going to cannibalize MacBook sales. I think there is a whole class of people that don't need to open up Xcode or a large, really intense engineering app that will be able to transition into a Vision Pro and then sit on their plane and take a flight somewhere and not have to worry about someone looking over your shoulder at what you're writing, where you're working in a frankly compact environment that is, in terms of physicality, it's compact, but in terms of experience, it's immense. And yeah, I don't think price is going to be an issue. Give it 12 months and you'll be, if you're not on it in some form or another with an app that's applicable, you'll be kicking yourself.
Do you mean more so like number of users who buy it, or like the developers? There is that too, yeah. How quickly will it be adopted because it's so expensive?
Yeah, my feeling is the only thing that's going to suffer from the arrival of commercially available Vision Pro is MacBook sales. But Apple's used to consuming their own product line, so.
Yeah, I just thought of a cool killer app idea. Someone can do this, like a virtual walkthrough, like at your architect's office would be cool.
Of their office?
No, not of their office, but of the house you're going to get from your architect. Will be cool.
Do that now.
I know, but like it'll be good now. Yeah. So that's the story of the actual Apple vision. It'll be good now. Not just janky and gimmicky. Yeah. Look, the price is horrendous. Absolutely. And we need to like be historians here. The iPhone came out like a year before the 2008 recession. If you follow the economy, this might come out the year before the 2025 recession. I think we'll be fine. There'll be people like me who will buy it because they want to be the first one, and they want to be early adopters, or they just want to be known for the guy who bought the first one. Just wankers. I think a lot of developers will get development kits or equivalent. I don't know if they'll get them all the way to Australia, but they might. I think a lot of businesses will buy them for in-house use. I think there'll be plenty, and as Quentin so elegantly put up, there is those 3 stages of apps. Ones that just work anyway, because you're in the Star OS ecosystem. Ones that would work a little bit more with a bit of effort, and then like people porting their Windows games over. Like, what's so great here is that with relatively little effort, you can get quite your existing stuff on there quite easily. So I don't think developers should shy away from doing all the low-hanging fruit they can. It's really going to be interesting to see how consumers react. One thing that was just ever so slightly mentioned in the keynote was they compared it to the cost of a home theater setup. So if you do compare it to like an 8K TV, like surround sound, like a sound bar, any of that sort of stuff, yes, it's probably comparable or cheaper. It might cannibalize laptop sales. There's a lot of people who just don't have laptops or desktops, which is unthinkable as a group of people who work on a computer all day. But like, they have like a phone and that's it, or like an iPad and that's their computer. Those sorts of people might go there as well. So yeah, yet to be seen. But I think there's plenty of people who are balking at the price, but plenty of people who are just like, yeah, that's reasonable. I suspect it'll be 5,000 or 5,500 a year. Something outrageous. So not subsidized. Yeah, probably people are doing this to me in the audience. Probably higher. Yeah. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'll probably be the most bearish here. With Shooty Skies Overdrive, so again the VR game we made, and I had a relationship with Meta and the Quest. Even then, it was still a fairly big risk to make our very first VR game. Like, it's like, how many people are actually going to be there and play this? Are they going to want to do it? Or who are we competing against? It's just every time you make an app or a game, you're going to face competition. You have a very good chance of failing, but that's okay. As long as you make educated guesses. Like we knew it was going to be unique. We applied for FilmVic funding, so that the game we made was half funded by Film Victoria. I fronted the other half, and it was not a big success on that platform. Still made a profit. So there are enough quests out in the world, and the store, like people are actually buying stuff on the Quest store. They've really got everyone going and buying and active. Like, you can make a game and make money on there. Now, with regard to the Vision Pro, it'll get to that. It'll get to that as well. But with the games that we're making, we're taking what's already working, we're porting them across. Like, this one runs in the window, this one's going to run in the volume. It's not a particularly big. It's not a big bet. It's not a big scary bet. I'll probably not be jumping in and make a Vision Pro only game tomorrow. That would be too big a risk for me. But just extending onto that platform and supporting it and making sure your app has the best possible case, it's going to make the device look awesome. Go for it. Yeah.
I might be a bit of a neophyte in VR, but it seems to be very much transactional, point to point, maybe a couple of people experiencing around a console. Do you think the VOS has got like swarm mode built into it, that it'll get massively scaled and that one app could have a global activity base at any given time? Is that evident yet, or is it too early to tell?
I think I understand your question. I don't think we'll see things like Pokemon Go for visionOS. visionOS is a your stationary, the world moves thing, whereas Pokemon Go and its equivalents, you go outside and the stuff is stationary, right? So it's totally endorsed. So, and a lot of people who are doing think pieces about this, about how it looks lonely. All the demos, one person on their very nice looking couch. No partners on the couch with them. There's no cuddling mode. There's no, And I talked just before about, replacing your home theater. Well, that's good if you're one person with a home theater, but as soon as your friend comes around, you're looking at a blank wall. I do. They're great.
The video of the guy watching his children. Like that was.
Yeah, that's weird. Yeah, that was odd. Yeah. Do I think it needs to have multiplayer, essentially multi-person things? I think because you've got, as we mentioned before, share play. So you and your partner could put both one on and then watch the same movie at opposite ends of the couch with your eyes looking at each other, the fake eyes. That's really hard to. That's probably why they didn't make that video. Yeah. No, I don't think so. I think you got to look at the initial apps. They're all kind of communication based, right? There's your iMessage, your FaceTime, your virtual avatar. All of these things are about connecting you with your world. There are some single player games, but I think Apple's going to put conscious thought into that loneliness factor, and they always have. And I think as someone picked up before, it's like, was it coincidence or deliberate that a lot of features for collaboration came out during COVID? Were these in reaction to COVID and all the Apple staff working remotely, or was this just some of the stuff that was spitting out of the vision department? We won't know, but it seems like a really good question to ask now. Yeah, hope that makes sense. Bit of a ramble. Anyone else want to chip in? Oh, next question.
Hi, I'd like to have your thoughts on app distribution model, because do you think it will be like iOS devices only through the App Store, or more like the Mac, where you can have the App Store, but you can also install your own apps, and then what will be the commission model behind it?
I believe there's a visionOS App Store coming as well, right?
I would say the EU might make sure they have to allow side loading, and Apple will not like to do side loading. But I mean, that's just speculation. I didn't see anything about that, and I think if you're going to all that trouble, certainly in the first wave, to make a game for Vision Pro, you're not going to immediately side load it because Apple probably won't like that. Yeah.
Something worth watching in your time where you binge videos around WWDC is the talk show, which is John Gruber puts on, and they had Craig Federighi asked that question about sideloading for the EU, and he was dodging it heavily, but he basically admitted to the fact that if they have to, they will. But they're reminding the EU that the safest way to get software is via a curated and vetted app store. So I don't know when that's going to come along. So it'll be its own app store. I don't think it'll be like a watch where it's an extension of your phone. I think you'll need to purchase the app in one of the app stores. I don't know if you need to purchase it again to use it on your second device. It's universal purchases. Great, thank you. So that's great. Which could be interesting regarding the earlier question about do I invest time to make my app compatible with visionOS if no one's going to purchase it again, just for visionOS. So for example, if I have Crossy Road on iOS, I'm going to get Crossy Road for Vision Pro automatically, just the same way I got it on Apple TV. Yeah, you lose. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Any more thoughts?
I was going to say, I think it's all a good case for just building your stuff in cross-platform code, Swift UI, that kind of stuff. I mean, it's compatible with UIKit, and I think that's purely just to allow existing apps to run. Like, if it didn't run with UIKit, there's no way I could get Streaks up and running anytime soon with it, because the iPhone app is pretty much probably 95% UIKit. But I think if you're using those cross-platform tools, and speaking about purchases, there's the new like subscription workflow stuff built in, so the barriers to that kind of stuff are being lessened all the time. So I can't imagine that I think it'll be its own app store, and I don't think that'll be a big barrier because I think if you're just building, if you're building for iPhone, you're building for iPad, you'll just be able to run it on there anyway, and vice versa. If you're going to invest the time, you just make it run everywhere.
Yes, pretty simple question. Is it site corrective? And then extending beyond that, can you see accessibility being sort of extended beyond in this device than the current device set?
Too many hands.
That's fine. Yeah, on some of the write-ups, they talked about, I think it was Marcus and Daring Fireball both talked about the fact that they gave their glasses to someone at Apple, and then they sculpted lenses on the spot and then popped them in so it fit their vision properly. Have you used a Quest? So with a Quest, it's sort of like everything's at the same focal range. So you don't have to worry about, can I see at infinity and what's the closest my hand can get to me, which now I'm 48 is there before it gets blurry. If you've ever used a Quest and used like pass-through, you'll see when something comes up really close to you, it's still very clear. So I think there's also might actually improve like eyesight accessibility as long as you've got the lenses fitted. I mean, at some point in the future, it feels like it could almost be better to walk around with augmented eyes, and then you don't have to worry about the fact that I can't see very far in front of me. But you're talking about well into the future. Yeah, I think like with regard to accessibility, Apple's have a history for doing a lot with accessibility, and it can only really, I can only see it sort of going up whenever it starts. Yeah.
They talked about accessibility in the keynote. Okay, for the Vision. Yeah, like it was the first thing when I went on the Vision Pro webpage, I just Command F straight away and typed in the word prescription. And yeah, you can get a prescription. They click in, they're magnets. They subtly fit just on the inside. They snap in. Yep. Yeah, they thought about that. And yeah, as Matt said, yeah, it could be better than your actual eyes one day. I think also combine that with the ability to translate signs, zoom into stuff, you know, walking directions. Like we're getting close to like robotics at that point, or like that sort of stuff. Be really cool. That's Vision Pro. That's Vision Pro X, Ultra, Max. Yeah, great.
So Cochlear recently had its internal version of WWDC, which we call the Cochlear Symposium. It's the first one we've had face-to-face, thanks to COVID, for a few years. And one of the things that happens is when recipients talk, we usually have a panel of recipients, and they range from teenagers right up to people in their 80s. And they talk about their implants as providing them with superpowers. And when you see the video quality that comes through, and the fact that just like the FPV headsets I have for my drones, you know, we can drop in optical adjustments for those. When you see the sharpness of the imagery, you can't help but think the next year somewhere, yeah, I've already put in my feature feedback saying, hey, I want to be able to have an API that lets me zoom in on a particular area, because can you imagine what my surgeons would do with that? Rather than being bent over a microscope and having their eyes, you know, glued to a microscope for 4 hours, if they could stand in a more comfortable posture, and if we could use machine learning to lock in on things like the scala tympani and stabilize the image for them, yeah, it's certainly capable of it. And yeah, and it's Apple. They always make a big thing about accessibility, and so they should. So I don't think there's a lot of concern in that space.
Sorry. Yep. Really quickly. Obviously, it reprojects the world onto the screens you see. So it has the ability to do things that iOS does right now. Like it can reduce flashing lights. It can potentially reduce motion. It can offer a barrier to the real world if you're sensitive to any of those things and you're on your vision, which I think would be really cool.
Yeah, I mean, these guys have all talked about the, I guess, accessibility related to your vision, but I think it's a physical device where, like maybe your iPhone and whatever aren't as much so. So I think Numa was talking before, well, when I was yesterday about the tightness of your arms and you know, the movements required with that. I was looking at one of the talks today, and they talked about. I was laughing because there's a Swift UI modifier related to basically hiding your hands or fake hands or something. I don't quite know how it works, but just being able to. It seems to me like a lot of stuff has been designed with accessibility in mind first, like as a sort of a first-class feature, and then everything sort of comes. Yeah. So and then everything comes after that. Like get those. I mean, as a general principle of designing iPhone apps, if all the accessibility features work, then your app's probably going to work quite well, just generally speaking. So I think it's been designed in that way. Just from like your hand movements to everything else that's required.
Yeah, I remember some of the stuff like the whole system's been built with accessibility and security like at the core. There's as a developer, there's some stuff that you can't access or like some data that is like on purpose like altered, so you don't get. I remember like the tracking of the fingers. If like there's a little jitter in the data that's included, so you can't like track the fingers as precisely as you would want, like if you are tracking all the positions, but it responds to inputs like the OS does that for you. There's stuff with the eyes as well, like they don't let you know like as an app like where the person is looking and for how long or anything, but they can still like the OS knows that you're looking at a button, but it doesn't tell you. And yeah, I think like similar to what you were saying, I think it's called augmented reality for a reason. I think we're at the start, but it's eventually will augment our lives, like in like the supervision, or like if you're colorblind, like you could possibly just like fix your colors, like you're not going to wear this like 24/7 and go shopping with it on your head, but it could help like for a lot of cases.
One I'm looking forward to from an accessibility point of view or anti-accessibility point of view is to know what it's like to be colorblind. I'm interested to give that a try.
There was one. I just realized it might be the best sleep aid device you could ever get.
Awesome. Thanks, Christian. My question is kind of related to the last question. I'm quite curious on the eye tracking in general. I guess as an interaction mechanism, that's probably going to be the first time for a lot of people, like using a device that's being controlled through eye tracking. I've never used a device that is controlled that way. I'm curious in terms of like what is like the resolution or the precision of our eye movements. I remember, sorry, I've been coughing quite a bit over the last week, so my voice is a bit gone. I remember when the iPhone was first coming out, a lot of people dissed the device because they were like, oh, people's fingers are too fat. They won't be able to press things. Like touch screens are a really horrible idea, but it actually turns out that our fingers can actually be quite precise. And so I'm curious in terms of the eye tracking, like how precise can our eyes actually be?
So it works perfectly in the device, and it's probably like a mix of like really good eye tracking that they do in the headset, but also you set it up just for yourself. So like you scan your face with it and knows the shape of your eyes, like the distance between them, like the IPD is automatically set and everything. And you do a little onboarding when you first use the device where they make you look at a little dot that just goes around. And yeah, and then once you've done that, it just never fails. Like it's really quick and really precise. Like everywhere you look, it's exactly there. You never miss anything, and it's really enjoyable to use. Like it feels really magical, like they show in the video, because you're much quicker with your eyes than you are with your hands, and there's no learning to be done. Like everyone knows how to look somewhere. So like you think about like older people trying to use the mouse and just like being really slow, like just like honing on the thing and just missing the button. Like you can't really look in the wrong place with your eyes, like you're always correct. So yeah, it's perfect input. I think it works really well.
Can I ask you something? Was there like a HIG that told you like the buttons have to be a minimum size to track to be accurate enough or anything like that? There is a video on that. I haven't seen that one. Sorry. I don't know. Yeah.
I'm just going to address my old age here. One of the first projects I worked on was at the Institute of Technology in Broadway, as it was called then, now the university. And it was a attention-focused operating system. And one of the things we learned back then was that eyes, you think you're looking at a person or a subject or an object, but your eyes are constantly jittering up and down, left and right. And when you see the selection in visionOS, my first thought was, okay, there's some serious computational adjustments going on there to make it that solid and that stable. Yeah, so I've ordered 5 of them, but TC hasn't supplied yet, so I'm just waiting. By the way, I do need 5.
I think similar to when touch first came out and people saw the iPhone, they were like, oh, you can't touch anything with accuracy, there's no stylus. And Steve Jobs was like, you've got 10 styluses on your hands, like, you'll be fine. What Apple did was they didn't figure out what you touched, but they figured out what you intended to touch. And same with the keyboard, they figured out what you intend to type, not what you typed. And I think here we'll see where you intend to look rather than where you're actually looking. Because people's eyes dart around all the time. Like, as a matter of, like, my eyes are doing it right now as a tick of public speaking. You know, like, whereas, and as Craig said, the jitter in your eyes, like, try to look at a solid point. It's actually really quite hard. So yeah, there's machine learning and a lot of smoothing going on there to support that, which I think is really neat. I don't think you'll be able to draw with your eyes. I don't think the killer app will be a drawing app, but maybe with your fingers in the air or something like that, that would be cool. But yeah, I think you can think of it as an input as precise as a finger, but I wouldn't think of it as like a pencil. Happy to be wrong.
Numa said that.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know if you could do that with your eyes. I think you can get the best you can get was like the orientation of your head or the device, I think. So you could like cast a ray from like between your eyes, just like where people are looking, but not the eyes directly. I don't think. Yeah.
So as developers, we're kind of building the future, and we got a lot of cautionary tales from social media and Black Mirror. So I'm wondering from each of you, what are kind of your hopes? Hey, well, let's build. Yeah. So from your perspective, what are kind of things you hope are coming out of this, and what are we staying clear of?
We touched on this a little bit last night. I will be slightly mean to Meta just for a moment, whereas I'm happy to trust Apple with where I look. I'm not happy to trust Facebook with where I look. Someone that their company's been trying to figure out the best way to sell stuff to us for so long, and what I really like about Apple is the selling stuff isn't really a part of their thing. I'd be very also worried, like when I first heard the device had a lot of cameras on it, I'm like, well, it's going to be able to see everything in my room. It's going to be able to see my passwords that I'm typing onto my computer. There's actually quite a few danger zones there. If Apple have proved themselves to be very trustworthy over many years, and have made it a pinnacle of it's a pillar to them. I'm confident that those issues, like being able to see where my fingers are or not scan the password that I've got stuck up on my monitor, that would be great if they didn't do that. Yeah. or give that data to, if I'm on Safari, right? If I'm browsing Safari, also wouldn't want the owners of the website that I'm looking to know what I'm actually doing in here. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that just should not be given away and needs to be held on device.
Yeah, I think I'm reminded of casino design, right? If you've been to a casino in Vegas or anything, maybe the ones in Sydney, the carpets are hideous. They're deliberately hideous to make you look back up at the machines. There's no windows. You can't tell what time of day it is. We have the ability to recreate casino floors in visionOS, and we absolutely should not. We should keep people aware of their environment. You know, what time of day it is, what the light is doing outside, if people are walking into their field of view, people trying to get in touch with them, if it's an emergency, notifications, all that sort of stuff. So whilst we're thinking about developing incredibly immersive interactions and experiences, we cannot be cutting people off from the world around them. It's just something to think about. You can, but meaningfully interrupt them at the right time to remind them that they need to go eat, or the battery will do that anyway when it runs out. But yeah, maybe the 2-hour battery life is a safety feature, not a limitation of the battery size. We'll see. But yeah, just some early thoughts.
On the flip side, it would be good to be able to cut people off from their dark and depressing environment if they need light therapy. There are positive sides to it as well. As soon as I saw how immersive it could become, my family has had friends in Sweden from business relationships and further north. And when you hear the concept that light therapy is a thing, we do this so we don't throw ourselves in the ocean and not come back. There's as much upside as there is potential for downside. But having said that, the sandbox walls got a lot higher in visionOS than they are in macOS or iOS. So we at least are starting out at a solid place. Don't get me wrong, security has always got holes in it, and it's always a battle to patch the holes as fast as people find them. But I think we're starting at least at a better place than an Oculus.
Sam mentioned before about Google Glass. I think one of the main reasons that product failed is because people just got punched out when they were wearing them. So because other people who weren't wearing them didn't want to be filmed, and I think that's and we won't know also with Vision Pro, and we won't know with Quest if people. Okay. Well, okay, that shows how much I know about it. But just, I guess my broad point is if it gets to the point where the batteries are really good and people are just sitting on the train, like, you know, you're on a carriage of 30 people and 10 people have them on there, like there's going to be a lot of like, you know, shoulder surfing and like, do you really want to put your phone passcode in because someone's sitting there recording, they can play it back. So you want to make sure that, I think part of the path to a successful product is having a reputation of selling a viable product, if that makes sense. Not viable, but you know what I mean. Not an advertising company necessarily, where I don't know, like you just don't know what they're going to do with the footage that you can see, or so I feel a lot more confident with a company like Apple putting that kind of product out, where if I'm not wearing one and the next person is, that I've got 10 cameras pointing at me recording or everything I say or do, and you know that I think that's a genuine concern that a lot of people who don't have these products will have.
Yeah, I think it looks like Apple has done everything they can to make the product like safe to use, but in the end, it's probably up to like all of us as developers to just not make shitty apps and just make things safe and like don't build stuff that no one wants to use and steal people's data and all that. So yeah.
So I might have missed it because I was picking up my brain off the floor after the announcement, but with the immersion, and a lot of the stuff is through, obviously, gestures through your hands. Watching movies, you tend to eat. Does that switch itself off when you're eating your popcorn? Just a curiosity. Have you thought about that?
I hope you could drink from it and like or are you coordinated enough to do it?
Yeah.
So I guess it could be a mode for those things. If you watch a movie,
Probably just, yeah. That's what I remember, but I wasn't sure. Thought I'd ask.
It's actually a bit hard to eat while you wear it because the screen is like this much off your actual eyes, and when your hands just goes to your face, it feels like your mouth is around here, and so like it's just.
Are you saying that video clip might have been promotion stage or something?
Yeah, maybe. You get used to it after a bit, but it always feels like you're just gonna miss your mouth part about it. Like
Other thoughts? Okay, we might have time for one last question. And mine.
Hey, just a quick question. So is the eye tracking good enough where you can feasibly develop like a first-person shooter type of game? Would that be possible?
like shoot with your eyes?
Yes.
Why? I don't know, because there's the whole thing where you can't get the data for like where the user is looking. So I don't think you could. Yeah. I don't. Maybe it'll change in the future. I don't know. But
though, isn't it? Like an immersive experience. My God, because it doesn't matter. In a fully immersive experience, you probably could know where someone was looking because it's not actually related to what's going on in the real world. But yeah, I fully admit I've always wanted to look at something and kill it. So there's a safe space, right? Yeah, I think it was Blue Thunder, that movie from years ago. Is anyone older than me? Go. Yeah, Blue Thunder, they could do that, right? Yep.
But just to answer, like, if you had access to the data, I think it would be like accurate enough that you could use it for aiming and shooting things.
I'll try to close the show. So I'm wondering, I don't have a lot of experience with like AR, VR headsets and devices. And it's like, for me, like 3D TVs, it hasn't really caught on. It's not mainstream yet. And I'm wondering, I'm sure Apple have sort of had it near ready for maybe a year, even 2 years. Why, like leaving the hardware capabilities aside, why now?
I think I think they're really lucky they didn't get gazumped by Meta and Facebook with regard to operating system. I think Meta have done a great job with promoting games and doing all this stuff and making fully immersive things, and it's a really good product. But they didn't do anything with regard to operating system. I think it was really important for Apple to really come and plant a flag. I mean, they've obviously been working on this for years. The longer you leave it, someone else could come in and claim some of those patents. Even just from that point of view, I think, yeah, I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner. Honestly, yeah.
Yeah, the early bird gets the worm, but the second mouse gets the cheese. They want to be the second mouse, Apple. The third person gets nothing. There's no third line to that turn of phrase. So I think, yeah, they're ready. The stars have aligned and it's time to go. Like, time to put it out there and try it out. And I think, we heard some commentary earlier about, it's similar to the Apple Watch. They chucked it out. They chucked out 100 features with it, and really fitness tracking became the niche. And they just doubled down on that. I think they're going to do the same thing with visionOS. They're going to put everything in it they can think of, and society, which is what we want to use. Avatar 2, Avatar 3, yeah, that in 5 and 10 years time. Yeah, we'll see.
I have a slightly similar but different opinion. I think Apple wanted to build something that was complete and solid as a computing platform. Sadly, what are we, nearly 2 weeks later, half the press is calling it a headset. It's not. Okay, it is, to use Apple's labeling, a spatial computing platform.
It's not a peripheral.
It's not a peripheral, and it's definitely not a peripheral, and you're not going to get your head ripped off when the cable is not long enough for you to step outside of the game bounds. But on the concept that what they've introduced, people are going, oh yes, it's leaps and bounds ahead of the competition, but they're also saying, oh, it's like when Steve Jobs got up and introduced the iPhone, and everybody went, no one's going to pay that much for a phone. The difference is, this is like Steve Jobs getting up and not introducing the iPhone, but introducing the iPhone 10 by comparison to the rest of the marketplace. There's nothing even remotely close to the build quality, to the integration of all the systems that are out there. And yeah, I just, honestly, I think I said on LinkedIn, you know, I've just seen my next 5 years worth of work drop. I'll be lucky if it's just 5 years.
Yeah, I don't know why. Well, the answer is to why right now, but they've built this product out in the open for the last 6 or 7 years. From the time they announced ARKit, that was sort of, I don't know who used the term planting the flag, but that was to me the planting the flag moment when, yeah. So I think Swift UI is a big part of it as well. Just having a simplified UI language. It's been right in front of us the whole time. As to why now, I couldn't tell you the specific reasons, but I think it was effectively announced with ARKit like in 20 whatever year that was, 17, 18, something like that.
Yeah, I was going to say it's the as good as the device is, it's the bare minimum that you need for this device to work, or like for the experience to be good enough. And like now is the time where the chips are good enough, and they've probably been working on the silicon chips for who knows how long, and the hardware is good enough. Like the components are small enough to fit in a headset. People have been used to just using like those digital interfaces for long enough now, and like we kind of want to escape the phones, but we can't go smaller. If you go bigger, like with a physical device, it doesn't really work. It takes too much space in people's rooms and everything. And yeah, just having all these components, just like this, everything converge into this device is it's the perfect match of all the technology that's been building up like for the past like 7 or 8 years. If you look at all the releases of ARKit, if you look back at all the keynotes, you can see like the little blocks dropping, like the ARKit, then it was like detecting people and hands, and then like scanning objects, and then all the like the metal for the more optimized shaders and everything, like it all to yeah.
There's a sample project from I think 2019, I think it was, and it was basically it was basically a sample project to capture things in 3D. And I'm like, so Apple never released an app to do this, but they basically put down a fully functioning app that you could capture objects in 3D. And that one always stood out to me as like a really weird sample project, because it was never like a fully fledged app, but it was enough that you could, as someone who didn't know how to do any 3D stuff, you could scan your beer can or whatever and actually get that into your app. And there was, yeah, like Apple provided functionality to do that. If you were willing to download the source code and run it on device, it was all there. You just had to get a like a steady camera or whatever. And that actually makes me think there's also a thing called DocKit this year. Has anyone seen that? It's like a yeah, it's like a framework where you can control motorized tripods.
It's a framework for a product that hasn't been announced.
Or something that you can capture things in 3D. Or I don't know, like let your imagination do the talking, but I suspect that's somewhat related to all of this stuff.
Do you want to speak to that, or did you finish that? Yeah.
Well, thank you, everyone. That was amazing. Thank you. I hope you all enjoyed that. I think it's pretty special to be able to assemble this panel of people who have a wide range of experiences, and you know, some people have actually used the thing. I think that's really cool. So another round of applause, and thank you. So that brings us to the end of the formalities for CocoaHeads tonight. Thank you, everyone, so much for coming. Again, hope you enjoyed it. Also, a massive thank you to TC and Apple Developer Relations for assisting us with organizing this. Without them, obviously wouldn't have been possible. A massive thank you to Christian, who was on the mic tonight and helps me run CocoaHeads. And of course to Sean and to Mantle for the space. We really appreciate it, and we hope you all enjoyed it as well. So another round of applause for all those people. All right, so like I said, that's the end of the formalities. Feel free to stick around and have a chat if you've got some time. I imagine most of the panelists will be around for at least a few more minutes. But otherwise, get home safely, and we'll see you next month. So.